Hello. I thought that I would do a video explaining how to do your next lab, which is going to be on geometric parallax. But before I do that, let's talk about the sunspot viewer that I had you make. So it seems like it's been raining a lot and the sun hasn't been out, and when the sun's out there's no sunspots because we're right in the middle of a sunspot low. So what I want you to do is build the sunspot thing. I want you to photograph yourself using it. I want you to photograph a picture of the sun. It does not have to be 3 inches in diameter. So if you can only get one image of it that's 1 inch in diameter, you might be able to see sunspots using that, but you might want to tweak it to see if you can get a larger image than that. But that's all that I need for you to do, and then send it to me. So email me those pictures so that you get credit for that lab. Now next week, so that's going to be for 4 or 5 of next week. So when you do your lab next week, you are going to be doing the geometric parallax. So what I'd like for you to do is to open up the Unit 3 labs. So go to Canvas, go to Modules, go to Labs, go to the Unit 3 labs, and go ahead and open that up now. So put me on pause if necessary. And then you are going to be clicking on 14. So you're going to go down to the bottom. Once you open the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, down at the bottom you got your tabs. And so right next to number 13, which is on photometry, now you're going to go to number 14. And I have redone the lab, so if you have an old copy of this lab, just ignore it, and we're going to go with this new copy, which is just crammed full of interesting pictures that I made for you. Okay, so I want to go through this with you. You still do need to do the pre-lab for it. It only has 3 questions. And now I would like for you to go down to materials. So for this lab, you're going to need ideally a tape measure would be the best. If you don't have a tape measure, you can do the whole lesson or the whole lab using just a ruler, but tape measure would be better. If you don't have a tape measure, what you could do is get a piece of string and then a ruler, and then you wrap the piece of string around the ruler to figure out how long the piece of string is. So you could use that like your tape measure. If you don't have a ruler, then you could use a box or something that is approximately 12 inches long, and you could use that for your measuring tool for this one. If you don't have a box, you can use your feet for a measuring tool for this. And I won't go any further than that. Also, you are going to need a protractor for this one. Now, I understand that maybe you don't have a protractor, but what you can do is if you go online and then you type in the word protractor and then you go to images, you're going to find lots of protractors. So just get one that's probably a picture, a drawing of a protractor, and make a copy of it, and that's going to work just as well as a plastic protractor. You could glue that down onto a piece of cardboard to make it a little bit less flimsy. Okay, so those are the things you're going to need for this particular lab. So I want you to go down to where it says Concept Introduction. So now this has been completely changed from the original lab. So you need to have this in front of you as I'm going through these instructions here. So it says that trigonometry, don't panic, okay, but trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that deals with the relationships between angles and distances. So the triangle there that is pictured is called a right triangle because you notice that the adjacent sides and the opposite sides, they're making a right angle. So that's called a right triangle there. And then in the one corner of it, it's got that symbol there that's called theta, and that stands for the angle. So one corner of the triangle makes an angle abbreviated by the Greek symbol theta. The sides of the triangle are the one adjacent to the angle and the one that is opposite to the angle. The last side of the triangle, so the side of the triangle that's doing this, that's going to be the hypotenuse. And now the whole point of trigonometry is that scientists and mathematicians have come up with these gigantic set of tables that relate the angle that triangle is making to the sides of the two parts of the triangle. And they used to have these big long tables, but we don't have that anymore because we have calculators. And you'll notice that on your scientific calculator you have 3 buttons on it. One says sine, one says cosine, and one says tangent. Now we're not going to be doing anything with the sine or the cosine, but we are going to be using that tangent button in order to do this lab. So the angle and the various sides of the triangle are related by the following equations. So sine of the angle is equal to the opposite side divided by the adjacent. The cosine of the angle is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And then the tangent of the angle is equal to the opposite divided by the adjacent. That's the one that we're going to be using. So we're going to be using the tangent equation. It's actually a function, to be technical about it, but we're just going to call it an equation. So let's say that we've got this triangle there, and it makes a 30-degree angle, and you know one of the sides of the triangle is 3 meters long, and the question is, can you figure out the missing side of the triangle? And yes, you can. So we are going to use the tangent one, because the tangent one involves both the sideways part and the up and down part, the adjacent and the opposite. And we're going to say that the tangent of 30 degrees is equal to x divided by 3. So I substitute x instead of the question mark. Okay, now on your calculator you're going to type in 30 and then you press the TAN button, and then your display gives you this really big number, which you can round it down to like 3 significant figures. So I get like 0.577. Now you try that. Make sure that that is correct. Let me know if that was not the correct answer to that. So now I'm getting 0.577 is equal to x divided by 3. And now we need to solve that little equation for the letter x. So that means take the 0.577 times 3, and then you get 1.73 meters. And that is the answer. So that would be the length of that missing part. Now you could even figure out the hypotenuse by using the Pythagorean theorem. Remember that one? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So c squared would be the hypotenuse, but we don't need it, so there's no point in doing that calculation. Now when you do the pre-lab, at the beginning of the lab, there is another one of these tangent questions that I want you to answer. And I even gave you the answer to it, so that you'll know if you're using your calculator correct. In this lab, you are going to be making a triangle, and you're going to be measuring the distance to an object, and then you're going to take those numbers put it into that tangent thing, and theoretically figure out what the distance to the object is, and then you're going to measure it, and then you're going to compare those two numbers, and hopefully it'll turn out to be pretty good. So I'm up to my 10-minute limit, so I'm going to stop this video, and I'm going to continue here in a few moments with the next video, and we'll talk more about the lab.